Hey there, it's Mr. Gibbs. How are you? Today, I want to talk about a subject that we don't want to have to worry about, but it's a subject that I hope will help keep you safe and you may gain some understanding about the processes associated with hazardous weather. And I want to make sure I'm doing some justice to it so that way yeah, I want to keep you safe. And hazardous weather is a reality more than earthquakes, especially in Virginia, where I assume you're watching this. We're going to focus mostly on tornadoes. So, when you think of tornadoes, you might think of the movie Twister or Twisters, which I've not seen. They are often known as such, or sometimes they're called cyclones, and they are incredibly violent windstorms that are spiraling in nature, and they form out of a thing called a supercell. And we'll talk about supercells here shortly. I mean, that's not to say they can't form out of cumulonimbus clouds, but most of the time tornadoes are associated with gigantic storms called supercells, which, like I said, we'll discuss here near the end of this lesson. The vortex of the tornado can get just insanely fast. And I've heard somewhere maximum velocity of that rotation can be close to 300 miles per hour. I mean, I've you're welcome to cross reference that, but it's insanely fast spinning. I mean, it's beyond. I just don't want to have to think about rotating that quickly inside a small area with all sorts of debris. And when it comes to the hazards, I mean, they can be random. Modeling of severe weather has gotten so much better than it was when I was a much younger man. We now have computer modeling that can work to keep areas aware of the potential and when they are striking the ground. I mean, the meteorologists during these scenarios, local meteorologists are working so hard to keep us safe. And thanks to Doppler radar, this is becoming more and more a not so one of those things where we didn't see it coming, if you know what I mean. We with technology have the ability to keep people safe. And if you hear about a tornado warning, take that very seriously. That means a tornado has been seen in your area. So, does it mean it's going to hit where you are? Well, no, but it is in your area, and your area can be quite large. So, just remember this. And the rankings of tornadoes go from F0 to F5. They're based on a thing called the Fujita scale, named after a meteorologist scientist at the University of Chicago who had a similar last name. In fact, that was his last name, Fujita. And F0 tornado is still a tornado, but there is no destruction. So, if I may, if an F0 touches down in a field, nobody's there, and I don't know, a few blades of grass get taken out and maybe a tree, well, I'm sorry, but technically that's an F0, no destruction. On the opposite extreme, then, an F5 means complete and utter destruction on a almost apocalyptic scale. And there are images galore of tornadoes. You can YouTube some wild videos taken by amateurs. Sometimes the videos may be fake. But anymore, there are folks who chase storms, and there have been plenty of, well, not plenty, I don't have exact numbers, but there are scenarios where people have lost their lives chasing tornadoes. So if you choose to go down that rabbit hole and you want to chase tornadoes, I'm warning you that that is a very poor life decision. Leave it to the experts. I mean, sometimes even the experts get killed, and because of the unpredictability. You think a tornado is going to go that way, well, all of a sudden it may go that way or come straight at you. So, yeah, please make good choices. Please make good choices. I have an image here of what F1 damage might look like. And then I have some images from a storm called a derecho that came through Chesterfield about a long time ago in relation to when you're watching this video. But a derecho is nothing more than straight line winds without rotation. Derecho, straight line winds. And these straight line winds can cause havoc. Um, they can be very dangerous. And the one time it did come through here, thankfully, we are in a low lying area. I knew something was up because I paid attention to the radar signatures, but it did sound like a freight train. You often hear this, that the sound of the impending awfulness of these severe weather events sound like a freight train. I'm not kidding when I agree with what they say. It is scary. And of course, F5 damage, total and complete devastation. It's like a bomb went off. There is very little left standing, and the damage is complete and total. So, F, the Fujita scale, also now known as the enhanced Fujita scale, is the damage associated. And I'd like to think it is somebody's job to go to these places where tornadoes touch down and they examine the damage, which has to be very depressing, something I wouldn't want to do. But then they look at the area to determine the strength of the tornado, and then they give it an F scale or an EF scale, enhanced Fujita. All right, now the evolution of a tornado. There are 5 stages. The first stage, you'll see off in the distance, or maybe close to you, hopefully off in the distance, the supercell event developing, and you will see rotation happening. Now, what rotation is occurring is a thing called the dust whirl stage. The material on the ground is starting to whirl around, dust is getting picked up, and it is not really anything that looks like a tornado, but you're beginning to see something that might whirl around, hence the term dust whirl stage. That's stage 1 of tornado development. The second stage is called the organization stage, where you see the funnel. The funnel has come out of the sky, and it may do a dance where it's forming and it'll go a little low and then go back up, go a little low and go back up. If it never touches the ground, you are still in the organization stage. So if that twist is visible, but it doesn't touch the ground, you still have a tornado that is organizing. Once it touches the ground, you now have a mature tornado. These tornadoes can last a while. Sometimes they travel miles. Sometimes they don't travel far at all. But once you have contact with the ground, you now have a mature tornado. And whatever happens, happens. The final 2 stages, you start off with the shrinking stage. Now, in the shrinking stage, the tornado is doing what the name says. It is shrinking. It is starting to disappear. Now, oftentimes, and once again, this is just what I've heard. I'm no tornado expert, but I have been told during this shrinking stage, this is when the tornadoes are their most dangerous. If you will, think of it as like a wild animal in its last bit of life. Oftentimes, wild animals in their last little bit of life, if they are fighting for their survival, will work harder than ever to survive. And that makes them especially dangerous. So, according to what I've read and what I've heard, during the last phases of a tornado's existence, the shrinking stage, they are oftentimes the most dangerous because they are fighting for their survival. And then lastly, you have the decay stage where it does that. It decays and it goes away. And you hope it doesn't come back. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm grateful that I don't live in the famous part of the country called Tornado Alley, which is pretty much the whole Midwest, all the way from eastern Colorado, kind of anymore, all the way to possibly western Kentucky. I mean, it is a huge area going from west to east or east to west, whichever way you want to go, and even north to south. I mean, tornadoes as far north as Minnesota, Why not? I mean, it depends on the conditions. And then in addition to Tornado Alley, you also have Dixie Alley, as it's called, which are the southern tiered states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Georgia, which have had their fair share of awful tornadic events, and I don't wish it upon anyone. Now, as I stated at the beginning, we will talk briefly about supercells. Now, supercells have so many parts. Now, the images of them are impressive. It is, if I may, like the wrath of an angry god, I've been told. I mean, I've seen supercells off in the distance, never been one, close by, thank goodness. And when I've seen them off in the distance, I've been grateful that that was the case. They were way far away and they were no immediate threat to myself or my family. There was an event back, what was it, 2017, maybe 2018, where there was a supercell that hit US 360 here in Chesterfield. It was in between Courthouse Road and Genitor Road on 360, and a tornado struck down as part of the supercell, and it took out, I believe, a wood flooring place. Forgotten the name of the company, but yeah, it took out the building, and there was a gentleman inside it, and he died. The tornado ripped apart the building. Back to supercells. I mean, you can see just these images are incredible. In Back when I taught in Powhatan, I had students who took an image of a supercell that came through back in 2011, and this is called downtown Powhatan. You can see the supercell off in the distance. I mean, even Batman sees it. Anyway, so yeah, back to the Powhatan picture here. This second photo of far western Powhatan was taken by a student. She told me she was alone at home when the supercell was in her backyard. And I'm like, and you were home alone and that was there. I appreciate the picture, but I would have rather known you were trying to be safe versus trying to get a picture for me. But thankfully, she was okay. And and also Petersburg's been known to have bad tornadic events. If you know your history of the area, depending on who's watching this and how old they are, back in 1997, I think, Old Town Petersburg was working to fix itself up. They were making Petersburg, trying to revitalize it, and a tornado came through. And that unfortunately, that plan to fix Old Town Petersburg was radically changed. It ruined Old Town Petersburg. And it also, I think it took out a Walmart near South Park Mall. Yeah, nothing good. Nothing good. The types of supercells. The first type is called the high precipitation supercell. Now, it's, the name kind of speaks, you would think, for itself, meaning there's a lot of rain, high precipitation. But mostly it's known for the fact that in that area that is closest to the ground with all that material above it, the area closest to the ground is called the bear's cage. You cannot physically see inside the bear's cage, but we feel as if, and these are, of course, the meteorologists who research this day and night, there are probably multiple tornadoes going on inside that area that is not visibly seen with the naked eye. Now, Doppler radar can penetrate that blackened area, that darkened area, to definitely determine the tornadoes are there. And that's nothing good. If you have multiple tornadoes inside an area, maybe a quarter of a mile in size, that sounds very unpleasant. And the name itself, bear's cage, yeah, I don't want to be in a cage with a bear unless it's a panda. But I don't think I'm going to be in a cage anytime. Listen in class.